If you enjoy this content, then please click all the buttons that you think suit the quality of this video. I've received a lot of messages that the legacy metagame has a problem right now. An archetype that may have never been seen before has risen to the top of the metagame. Mono White Initiative is a new deck introduced to Legacy because of these two new commander cards. The initiative mechanic is similar to the Monarch, but instead you venture into the dungeon when you get the initiative and every following upkeep. Typically you want to venture down the forge path as it applies a lot of pressure to the opponent quickly. The rest of the deck is streamlined to ramp into a consistent turn 1 initiative creature, or a cheap but destructive effect like Chalice of the Void, Thalia, or creatures like Elite Spellbinder. Let's see if this deck is really what the MTG community makes it out to be. To start the first round, we're on the draw, but we have a very nice hand because we have a turn 1 Chalice of the Void followed up with a turn 2 Seasoned Dungeoneer because of the second City of Traders. However, everything goes completely south when the opponent casts a land grant and we see that their hand is the absolute nuts because they're about to make a ton of Empty the Warrens tokens. They make 12 1/1 goblins and we top deck a Solitude. Now I go into the tank for a long time here because is there any point of casting the Thalia? Should I Chalice on 1? Should I try and hope to draw something to cast the Solitude? And I end up deciding that the line I want to go with is cast the Chalice of the Void on 1, hope to top deck a Lotus Petal or a Crow Mox so I can Solitude, which will make me live another turn, and then I have to top deck a second card. So I've decided to take the line of I need to get lucky because the things in my hand just aren't doing good enough right now. Like an absolute beast, we rip Lotus Petal off the top of the deck so we can survive at 1 and get another draw step. We execute this plan, the opponent attacks with the 11 tokens, we block 1, survive at 1, but sadly whiff our draw step. I don't think we had an out here anyways, but was still a fun game. Going into boarding, on the play for game 2, I decide that turn 1 Thalia is what I'm looking for and I don't actually need any additional sideboard cards from what we saw. Something important about the opponent's deck is that they only play 1 land. So because we have a turn 1 Thalia here, I think that it's good enough to disrupt a deck that only plays 1 land, as if they don't have that 1 land, then they'll lose the game. So we play one of the Angel lands, play our Thalia, and say go. What's good is for the next few turns, the opponent just goes to discard. While we're whiffing our draw step, it doesn't matter because we're just hitting him with our 2-1 and they need to find their land. As don't forget, they only play 1 land in their deck, so it's really unlikely for them to find it. Not only did the opponent find their 1 land, but they have a creature to block my Thalia. We do find a White Plume Adventurer off the top, which is a really good top deck here as it will help us find a land drop. Now, I know this is going to annoy a lot of people, but I've only noticed this during editing. I completely forgot that a Ganjo can hit blocking creatures, so I let this creature stick around because I just forgot that this channel land could hit blocking creatures. I only thought it was attacking creatures, but it shouldn't matter, right? We get to untap our Thalia on the upkeep because of the Adventurer's trigger, then we get to forge the Thalia, putting 2 +1/+1 counters on it, and because of the City of Traders, we can now make some Angels with the hardcast land. Now we do actually have Mega Lethal because we have the trap ability of the Undercity on the next turn, so we should be completely fine here. The opponent plays another Tinderwall, starts sacking their Tinderwalls, they cast a Lion's Eye Diamond. Yikes, I punted. Hopefully you can learn from me, read the card, explains the card, learn from my mistake. Going into the next round, we mulligan a clunky opening 7 but keep a nice 6 which has a turn 2 initiative creature with a Chalice of the Void on 1. We start off with our Chalice and say go. It turns out to be the Mirror and the opponent leads with an Archon. Now you could say it's a punt to not play the Crow Mox last turn, but I think it was good to hold the Crow Mox to have information on what the opponent was playing because I didn't really want to pitch one of the cards in hand on the blind, as well as our land enters the battlefield tapped anyways from this Archon, so we wouldn't be able to cast one of these creatures anyways. We pitch the Thalia because it's definitely the weakest card in our hand, and the opponent follows up with an initiative creature. The Seasoned Dungeoneer here is so powerful it almost ends the game, and that's specifically because I can't Palace Jailer anything here. If I Palace Jailer the Archon, they'll attack with a Seasoned Dungeoneer, give it protection from creatures, and get the Monarchy back, and then they get back their Archon because of the wording of Palace Jailer. It's not when the Palace Jailer dies they get the Archon back, it's when they get the Monarch back, they get the Archon. So I play the Palace Jailer here, but it's essentially giving up because I just wanted to draw an extra card. But yeah, we are basically dead this game. The Seasoned Dungeoneer is so powerful in the mirror, I didn't really know what else to do. I could have played a Seasoned Dungeoneer myself, but I thought that that would be pointless because that would give them the initiative again. Also, I don't know if I'm even playing perfectly because this is my first time playing with the deck. Going into boarding, I bring in 4 Swords to Plowshares and 2 Empty Shrines. We also take out 4 Chalice of the Void and 2 Thalias. Going into game 2, we have the absolute nuts. Having 2 Swords to Plowshares to interact with the opponent, especially on turn 1, is great, and then we can follow up with a White Plume Adventurer or an Anointed Peacekeeper, whatever we feel suits the plan. We start off with our Ganjo, ship back the turn, and the opponent leads off with a turn 1 White Plume Adventurer. They get a basic plains from the initiative, and then we plow it on the end step. Now, we could slam our own White Plume Adventurer here, but I think it's better to go for the Anointed Peacekeeper, and that's because they don't have good options for their next initiative trigger. They can either scry 2 or put 2 +1/+1 counters on a creature. Well, they don't have any creatures. I don't mind them scry 2ing. I'd rather see what's in their hand and disrupt their next play. We're rewarded. They have 3 lands and a Seasoned Dungeoneer, so let's name the Seasoned Dungeoneer and pass back the turn and hope this scry doesn't hit anything good. They do scry both to the top with the Undercity, but they only cast an Archon and ship back. This is perfect for us as we have the Swords to Plowshare. So what we can do now is attack with our Anointed Peacekeeper, get back the initiative, get a basic plains from our deck, and then cast a White Plume Adventurer, and because we get the initiative again, the initiative trigger triggers again, and we can go through the dungeon again. With this initiative trigger, we're going to Forge, put 2 counters on our Anointed Peacekeeper, play our Lotus Petal in case they have something like Thalia, ship back the turn. From here, you can clearly see who's going to win. They play a land, ship back the turn, we do find an Elite Spellbinder off the top, and when we cast it, they just concede. Going into the third game, we have to mulligan down to 5, and we do find 2 Gemstone Caverns, which I brought in instead of Thalia's, but we have a very awkward hand. What I decide to do is bottom the Solitude and the Chrome Mox, and keep a Chrome Mox in hand, with the intention to pitch Gemstone Caverns to Gemstone Caverns as we're on the draw. This is because we have more white spells in our deck than we do lands, and I want to be able to play the Karakas, play the Chrome Mox, and use the Gemstone Caverns to play White Plume Adventurer on turn 1. Hopefully all that makes sense. The opponent plays a mountain, plays a Lotus Petal, ships it back, and we rip an Ancient Tomb off the top, which means we can cast our White Plume Adventurer. With the initiative trigger, we have to get a basic land out of our deck, so we draw basic plains and ship back the turn, and hoping that we just don't draw any more lands this game. The opponent follows up with their own White Plume Adventurer, which is quite bad for us here as they steal the initiative back from us. And we draw a land off the top, which is the worst possible draw step, so we can only play our Karakas, and I'm going to attack with my White Plume Adventurer just so that they can't forge theirs, but this is terrible for us. Even if we kept the Solitude in our opening hand, we still wouldn't have been able to cast it here because we didn't draw any white spell to pitch to the Chrome Mox. The opponent gets to see the absolute devastation of a hand that we have by playing Elite Spellbinder and exiling our Chrome Mox, and then just to top things off, we draw another land off the top of the deck. Now, I don't know if it's because I'm new to this deck and maybe I'm making some subtle mistakes, or I'm just getting unlucky, but it has felt really rough these past 2 matches. Sometimes Magic does this to you and you just lose games. I'm not sure. Let me know down below if you think I'm making obvious mistakes. To start the third round, we're on the play again, and now we have a turn 1 Chalice of the Void, turn 2 Initiative Creature. This is exactly what we need. Let's slam this Chalice of the Void. The opponent thinks a lot, but the Chalice eventually hits the table, they untap, and they lead with a Wasteland, which is actually really bad for us here because it slows down our hand a ton. But then the opponent let me untap and cast my White Plume Adventurers, so they must have a Force of Will here, but then they concede. I genuinely had no clue what the opponent was playing, so I just changed a few things in the sideboard. I brought in some Plows, brought out some Chalice of the Voids, because I just don't know what plays Wasteland, doesn't have Force of Will, and just concedes. Anyway, so I'm looking at this opening 7, thinking of what I'm going to do, and I think it's a decent keep. Let's see what the opponent decides to do. Okay, GG. This league was so weird. In round 4, I destroyed Bomberman. There was no chance that they could win. They just aggro scooped both games again. And then in round 5, I played against Legacy Shamans. Deck I haven't seen before, seemed pretty cool, but I don't know if it's that decent or not. They just folded to Swords to Plowshares and Solitude. But overall, we managed to 3-2 this league, so we will be opening the chest for you gambling degenerates, but I'm gonna say that this was honestly one of the most boring leagues I've played in Magic in a very long time. This deck is so repetitive, you just mulligan to an initiative creature, or Ancient Tomb, or fast mana. It's boring, the opponent's aggro scoop. Maybe I'm just being a negative Nancy, I'm not too sure, but please check out this video because YouTube thinks you like it, and if you enjoyed, don't forget to like and subscribe.